Stage 1 of the Overwatch League is less than a week away, and the hype has never been greater. But why not build up the hype even further by going over some of the most important things you need to know about the season and Stage 1, as well as some of the key matchups you may want to consider watching during opening week. There's plenty of things we have to go over, so let's kick things off by discussing some of the important information about the league this year, as well as some of the things about Stage 1. So in terms of general information about matches, just like with last year, regular season games will be the first to 3 map wins. If there's a tie during the set, then it becomes the first team to get 2 wins. Also, each team's going to play 28 games this season, which means every team will play in 7 games each stage. In terms of when games will start, on weekdays, games will approximately be played at 4, 5:30, 7, and 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. For games taking place on the weekend, start times are going to be 12, 1:30, 3, and 4:30 p.m. Pacific. If you don't go by Pacific time, then make sure to figure out when the games start for your time zone. If you're unsure of when the games will start for you, then I recommend going to the Overwatch League's website, and they'll probably tell you where the games will start in your time zone there. Also, I suppose it's worth noting that the All-Star game will be held at the halfway mark of the season, which is when Stage 2 ends. This is a pretty good change if you ask me, just because now the players get a well-needed break after their first 14 games. Doing this can help players avoid burnout too, so that's really good. It also makes the league more like some other American sports out there, kind of like with baseball and basketball, because they too also hold the All-Star break at the season's halfway mark. For stage playoffs, 8 teams are going to make it, with the best team in each division automatically receiving either the 1 or the 2 seed. Games are going to happen Thursday through Sunday, with quarterfinals matchups being the first to 3 map wins like with regular season games, and then semifinals and finals matchups will be the first to 4 map wins. One thing worth noting about stage playoffs is that they're only going to occur in the first 3 stages. There will be no playoff games played after stage 4. I repeat, there is no stage 4 playoffs. The team who wins a stage playoff is going to get $200,000, with the runner-up receiving half of that. What's cool about stage playoffs is that every team is going to get at least a little bit of money. Even the teams who lose in the quarterfinals are going to get something. For the overall playoffs, 8 teams will qualify, with the 2 division winners automatically punching their tickets to the postseason, and then seeds 3 through 6 will be based off of the best remaining records regardless of division. The 7 and 8 seeds are going to be decided through a play-in tournament between the 7th through 12th best teams in the league, with the top 2 teams advancing to the overall playoffs. I like these changes a lot because it means we get to see a handful of extra end of season games being played, and the team who wins it all will receive $1.1 million, by the way, and every other postseason team will get at least $200K. Another thing worth noting about the end of season playoff format is that it's a double elimination bracket. If you're unfamiliar with how this type of bracket works, basically, the teams who lose in the quarterfinals will then play each other in a separate bracket in round 1 of what we call the losers round. The teams who win this round will then play against the teams who lose in the semifinals of the winners bracket. The teams who get through those games will then play each other in the loser semifinals. Then the team who loses the winners finals will play against the team who won loser semis in what we call losers finals. Whoever wins that game will play in the grand finals against the team who came out on top in the winners bracket. I hope that helped explain things if you're unfamiliar with how this type of bracket works. If you're still confused, then I recommend looking it up on Google or something. But anyway, now let's talk about stage 1, and before I discuss the key matchups to pay attention to in week 1, let's quickly go over the map pool. The control maps for this stage will be Busan, Ilios, and Nepal. The tiebreaker map is going to be one of the 2 control maps not already played on during the set, kind of like with last year. The hybrid maps are going to be Hollywood, Kings Row, and Numbani. On Assault/2CP, we'll see Temple of Anubis, Horizon Lunar Colony, and Volskaya Industries. And the escort maps we're going to see are Rialto, Dorado, and Route 66. I personally am pretty excited to watch Kings Row in all of the control maps listed, because I absolutely love control. It's my favorite game mode, and plus Kings Row is like everybody's favorite map, right? It's always fun to watch people play there. Okay, now let's talk about some of the key matchups you definitely want to tune in for during the first week of stage 1. And starting things off with the Thursday games, I kind of consider them all to be key matchups in a way, just because it's opening night and everyone is really fired up to watch the games again, since it's been so long since we've had Overwatch League content. And the first game in particular really catches my eye, since it's a rematch of last year's grand finals between the London Spitfire and the Philadelphia Fusion. Will the Fusion get revenge, or the Spitfire going to prove that their title run was not a fluke? What is there to not be excited about when it comes to this game? It's the opening game of the season, and you get to see guys like Carpe, EQO, Prophet, and Jester battle it out on stage. The 5:30 game is the NYXL versus the Boston Uprising, and this match is probably the least exciting one of the night. Sure, it's going to be fun watching guys like Jonek and Pine pop off on stage, but I don't expect the Uprising to put up much of a fight. They only have one DPS player coming into this game since Color Hex is serving a 2-game suspension, so someone on the team is going to be playing in a role that they're not super comfortable on, which means that it's more than likely that someone on the team is going to make mistakes, and that is something you cannot afford to do against the New York Excelsior. They will always make you pay for making a poor decision every single time, and that's a fact. If you are considering skipping a game, then I recommend skipping this one since it's probably not going to be too close. Matchup number 3 on the night will be the Gladiators versus the Seoul Dynasty, and this is another one of those massive games that you do not want to miss. We get to see Fissure and his new team take on one of his previous teams in the Gladiators, and the two sides kind of left on sour terms with all the drama Fissure was causing during the playoffs last year when he got benched for iRemix, so I expect this to be quite the grudge match. The Gladiators want revenge on Fissure, and Fissure wants revenge on them. The Dynasty as a whole also want to dish out some payback to the Gladiators since they were the team that officially eliminated them from playoff contention last year. Both teams also have a new look on their roster in general just because of all the additions they made over the offseason, so that in itself is a very valid reason to be excited about this game. The final game of opening night will be the Shanghai Dragons versus the Hangzhou Spark. There are two reasons why I see this as a key matchup. For one, it'll be the first time we ever get to see an expansion team on stage, and two, the Dragons are rocking out with a completely new team. They added 4 members of Chengdu Panthera to their team, and they got a new coach. This team is looking to be much improved compared to last year, and we could finally see this team win their first game as a result of these improvements. The sheer fact that the Dragons could finally win a game should be enough to draw you into watching this match. Moving on to Friday's games, the first key matchup I have is the Atlanta Reign versus the Florida Mayhem. The main reason why I have this highlighted as a game of importance is because we're probably going to see Dufran on stage in the Overwatch League for the first time. It'll be his epic return to the pro scene, and I'm sure that any fan of Dufran is super pumped to watch him play. Moving on, the Dallas Fuel versus San Francisco Shock is another game that should be a good one. Both teams have made some roster changes, and it'll be interesting to see how their new players fit in with the rest of the team. The Shock in particular are a much anticipated team to watch, since they're being considered by most to be a playoff caliber team. We also get to see Striker play his first game in a Shock uniform, so that should be very interesting. The 8:30 game between the Charge and the Hunters has also caught my attention. The reason for this though is pretty simple. It's going to be the first game in league history played between 2 expansion teams. I know both of these teams haven't been hyped up all too much by the community and all, but witnessing history is something any person should want to be a part of. On to day 3, the first game that I have highlighted is the Paris Eternal versus London Spitfire game, and I think this one is definitely worth watching just because we get to see guys like Soon and Shadowburn finally play on their new team, and then we also get our first taste of what a fully European roster is going to be like in the Overwatch League, so that'll be an interesting thing to see for sure. The following game between the NYXL and the Washington Justice is another key matchup, and it's mostly because of the storyline with this one. New York's former coach Wizard Young and their former main tank Janice are now on the Justice. The two of them know all of their former team's tricks and tendencies, but is that alone going to be enough to make this a close game? Probably not, but it's still going to be interesting to see the genius coach plant against his former team, and I'm sure that Janice wants to make New York regret releasing him by having the game of his life. The next key matchup I have for you guys is the game between the Valiant and the Spark, and I think that's going to be very interesting just because this is LA's first game without Soon, and we also get to see how Kareev does after making the transition over to DPS full time. Seeing how the new flex support Iziaki performs is also something worth watching in my opinion. The final game on Saturday night is also a key matchup since we get to see the Vancouver Titans, also referred to as Runaway, finally play in the Overwatch League. In a way, this game is kind of like a rematch of Overwatch Contender Season 2, since there's going to be a lot of former Runaway and Chengdu Panthera players making an appearance in this match, and we all know how legendary that game was, so I'm expecting to watch a pretty evenly matched and entertaining game. And finally, as we move on to day 4 of opening week, I actually only have one key matchup for Sunday's games, and it's between the San Francisco Shock and the LA Gladiators. Both of these teams are considered by most to be powerhouses, so I'm expecting to see a pretty good match played, and this could very well be a preview of a future stage playoff game that we see later down the line. And that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over with you guys, so that's all the important information about the second season of the Overwatch League I felt was necessary to share with all of you guys, as well as some of the important information about Stage 1 and some of the key matchups you don't want to miss during opening week. I had an absolute blast making this video, and I would not be opposed to making more in the future. Maybe I'll even do a key matchup video for every week of each stage. If you want to see more of these types of videos, then please let me know down in the comments section, And if you enjoyed today's content and are excited for the Overwatch League to start, then make sure to hit that like button. If you're new around here, consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.